Hello and welcome to Wolfman Gaming. This is my Uncharted 2 Crushing Difficulty walkthrough, and this is chapter 6, also known as Desperate Times. And this chapter is very action-packed. We are gonna go through some very large combat sequences, and we are also gonna take down the game's first boss. But first, this big fight. This takes up almost half this chapter, because it is quite a big fight. There are lots of enemies. I think there are 3 waves of enemies. 3 or 4. But either way, let's get into it. Chloe is gonna start by throwing in a grenade, and I follow her example and throw in one my own. Just try to get some residual kills, and didn't work very good. But being in this flatbed, or the back of this truck, is the absolutely best position you can be in this fight. No one can touch you in here. The only risk you run while you're sitting here is if someone manages to get a grenade up on this flatbed. And all you have to do if someone launches a grenade in here is just jump over the railing, down on the ground. As soon as the grenade explodes, get back up. Because enemies, for some reason, never climb up in this trailer. I did 2 attempts at this fight because I got really unlucky. A grenade landed in the flatbed around halfway through this fight, and I didn't see it. I thought it landed just outside between the driver cabin and the flatbed, and well, it didn't. I died. But no enemies ever came up here. They are not as aggressive in the first game. Neither of these guys will try to rush you as much as they did. They will just hang back, they will fire at you, and they will fail miserably, and we will kill them one by one. And sadly for this fight, I have a horrible weapon, the FAL. Could be called the fail. Because it can be good at distances since you can zoom in, but it seems the damage output on it is about as useless as the AK-47 was in the first game. The AK in this game is a lot better, actually, but if you hold the trigger down for too long, the aim is gonna start blooming out, and your shooting is gonna be a lot less accurate. So always do quick control bursts when you're using the AK. And the FAL, much like the Rafika, fires in rounds of 3, I think it is. And it can be good if you manage to put your aim just at the top chest part of an enemy, because then hopefully the 3rd bullet will hit his head. But I'm not a big fan, and soon I'm gonna move out of this truck, I think. Things are starting to get quite hectic. But as you can see, I'm not at any big risk. I don't think I've even been hit yet. Maybe 1 bullet, perhaps 2, if someone got really lucky. But as you can see, this is a great area to be in. And I make a little mistake in this fight. There is a way to make it go faster. Because when we mow down this first wave of enemies, all of these guys, another truck is gonna show up to the party, and that truck carries a big turret. So what you can do is run through that temple over to my left. I'm gonna move in a little while, but what you can do is run into that temple, and when that truck is arriving, just throw a grenade on the back of it and spawn kill every enemy on the truck. Or at least almost everyone. Maybe you'll get 1 or 2 stragglers. There's always one guy that just refuses to lay down and die like a good little bad guy. But then you can man the turret, and then when the final wave comes in, they come in over to my right at the end of this street. Then you can just use the turret and turn them all into swish bad guy cheese. And now you can see I was starting to lose my patience. I resorted to the RPG to try to speed this fight up. Because it is a bit too long, I have to say. I think it took me about 10 minutes So right now we're just around the 5-minute mark and we're halfway through this fight. So it outstays its welcome for a little bit. And that is the problem sometimes in games, how to balance a fight, because you don't want to make it too short and you don't want to make it too long either. I think if I had been a bit more aggressive towards pushing up, going in for the close kills, maybe I could have sped this up, but this is absolutely safest strat I've ever come up with for this fight. I could think on a previous run of this game when I was playing just for my own amusement, because I really like this game. I tried going in, staying on the ground, being much more aggressive, and it worked, but it is harder. You're gonna have to move around a little bit more and you're gonna be much more exposed to danger. And now I think we're coming up to the end of the first wave. This is the last guy. So now I'm gonna go into the temple. Or am I? I think I am. I'm gonna run around for a little bit and pick up some ammo. I don't think the truck spawns until you run into the temple, but I may be mistaken. I wouldn't put my life on it. Yes, I think it does spawn when you move into this temple, because you're gonna hear an audio cue very soon as I move up to the back of this. Chloe says reinforcements are coming. So if you want to be a bit more ballsy, just stick around, throw a grenade on the truck, take out everyone, kill any stragglers that are still left behind, and then use the big turret to just mow down the last wave. But I went back to the flatbed and now I'm gonna wait for them to arrive. And in this fight, always make sure that you have one grenade left. Because in every wave there is at least one guy with a riot shield. And by far the most effective way is to put them down is just whip out a grenade and put it right behind your shield and watch them fly. But this is just as before. One of them, he's getting quite close. Good for him. And then he throws a grenade straight into the traffic lights. So we punish him by using our godlike blind fire. And that was second wave, and here is the last one. You see, riot shield guy, he goes flying. And now we can just pick off the stragglers. And don't be afraid to use your grenades. Yay, one of them managed to get a grenade into the flatbed. And that's exactly what I mean. All I did there is just jump out on the back of it, where I'm safe, where no enemies are, so I don't end up in their line of fire. And the very second it goes off, just jump back in. And now I think we just have this guy and Mr. Turret guy left. Everyone else is dead, and he's firing desperately. He has no idea where we are, he just knows. He has heard the gunfire, he has heard grenades going off, and probably getting a bit desperate. And wishing that he could just screw down the turret, or that the guy who had the car keys didn't run off and got killed. So I'm gonna advance on him, and I take the road through the temple because here he can't hit me. I am completely safe by this, or behind this little stone wall. So I'm just gonna duck down here and put a grenade on there. So Chloe gets his attention, throwing a grenade, he's dead, and that is the end of the fight.
Oh, man.
Very easy.
Yeah, I think that's the last of them.
As I said, maybe it's not the fastest strategy, but by far it's the safest. So now, as always, run around and loot the battlefield. I prefer to use the AK. You go with whatever gun you feel comfortable with. Because in these fights coming up, what weapon you use is more up to what you prefer than what's most effective. I like the AK. I think it's a lot better
This is our best
now
bet.
than
Give
it
me a
was
boost up.
in Uncharted
Got it.
1, as I mentioned earlier.
Okay.
So I'm gonna stick
it?
with it. Because a lot of the combat we are gonna do right now is in quite close quarters. So the zooming function of the FAL is very useless. Or it's not necessary. I'm not gonna say it's useless.
All right.
It's the FAL as a
Clear
weapon
so
that's
far?
useless.
Is there another way in?
Not from here.
It only serves a function when you need to do some long distance shooting and
Very
you don't have a
resourceful.
sniper rifle. And this is standard 101 platforming. We cling to signs, we jump into... I think this is an old hotel.
Alright, I'm in.
And we're gonna head up to the top floor. And here we have one big heavy and one guy in his black armor.
Nice.
And the heavy, of course, can be very dangerous if he gets close. He has a shotgun, as all heavies do. But as long as we don't let him get close, he doesn't stand a chance. So I'm just gonna use, once again, the godlike blind fire. He walks straight into it, and down he goes. But once again, I want to turn your attention to how beautiful this game
Power's
is.
out and the girl's trapped. I swear to God, if there's a
Because-
zombie around the next corner.
All the attention to detail, not a lot of... Usually in games when you have a lot of detail, it's just because you're gonna face off against something horrific. Or something very dramatic. You're gonna go in for a boss fight. But in this, you can run through an old temple or whatever with great detail and little ornaments and carvings and all that stuff. And you're just gonna spend 10 seconds there while you're passing through on your way to the next fight. And I think that's really great because sometimes you just feel you have to stay for a second and just enjoy the environment as we head onwards underneath this little walkway. And also in this building there are a lot of small fights. There is a propane tank over there to the left. I'm gonna use that to kill at least one or two of these enemies. I think there are 3 or 4 of them spawning in. Here comes one. I was a bit quick to climb over the edge into the room. Almost got punished.
Got wet, bitch.
Never move in too fast. And that is something weird. Do you see when I blind fired that he shot just straight into the wall? That is something that happens at times in these games when you're hanging off an edge and you're firing your gun. That when you blind fire, you cannot move it, and I don't know why that happens. Because it seems very inconsistent. As well as his eyesight. Do you see him going down the stairs? And did the world's fastest moonwalk back. Moonwalk. Did the world's fastest moonwalk back up the stairs. Was what I was gonna say. But I've been spending the last few days playing The Lost Legacy as well, and as you may know, it's quite different from these games. It's a lot different from Uncharted overall, actually. There's not a big focus on combat in that game. Instead, it's a lot more focus on storytelling and building up the characters. And it's quite interesting. It's a quite interesting take on it. But I must say I prefer when Uncharted is like this, when the fighting is high octane and everything is very intense at most times. And be very careful when you go across this bridge because 2 enemies are gonna jump down. What you can do there is when you walk, when you're about halfway across the bridge, throw a grenade and run up fast, and hopefully you'll spawn kill them. Or you can do like I do and shoot the propane tanks. That works as well. Whatever that works, use it. But as I said, there's a lot of focus on action in these first 3 games, especially 1 and 2. in Uncharted 3 was where they really started focusing a bit more on storytelling. And some chapters are... I think there is at least one, I think there may be 2 chapters that are completely devoid of action moments. They are just based around exposition and progressing the story forwards. And that is great the first time you play a game.
Forgotten about me, have you?
Because I've been recording a walkthrough for Uncharted 3. I did it maybe a week ago. But anyway, it's really fun when you're playing the game the first time, those exposition segments, because I enjoy a good story in games. I've talked about it before, because a good story in a game can really enhance your experience. But it cannot save a game.
Come on.
The most important thing in a game is good gameplay. You can't get away from that. And great gameplay can save a shitty story, but a shitty story can never save bad gameplay. But those really heavy exposition moments, like an entire chapter that's only based around exposition, is really fun the first time you play it. Second time, not so much. And here I thought there was a trophy for swimming around in this pool. I know it was in the first on Uncharted 2 on PS3.
No.
Marco.
If you swim around in this pool long enough for Chloe to say Marco Polo, or to answer his Marco with a polo, you will get the trophy Marco Polo. Went a bit ranty there. But apparently I checked through the trophy list and they had removed that trophy in this game. Or in this port of the game for the PlayStation 4. So if you're playing this on the PlayStation 3 version, feel free to swim around in the pool and unlock another trophy.
Moving.
And now we're soon coming up to the helicopter fight. Remember that the helicopter we saw in the previous chapter?
How the hell do we get
Now we're
across?
gonna fight him. And it's really intense, it's really fun. And
Oh god, be careful.
yeah, everything happens all at once, and it's scripted in such a way. Because now the chopper is just here to stress
Give me
you.
your hand.
Just go.
He wants to force you to move on, that's his main purpose.
I'm right behind you.
And also, he doesn't do that much of damage, even on crushing. I don't know what it's like on brutal, because I haven't played this game on brutal. But don't focus on the chopper right now. He is just there to stress you out and make you and force you to progress forwards. And this works great, because the first time I played this game, I almost shat myself. Because he's gonna be on your ass, he's constantly firing, there are enemies dropping in, and you can just feel your adrenaline rushing. But I'm gonna jump over from this sign and duck down behind here, because a few enemies are gonna show up. There is a heavy and... no, it's not even a heavy, it's just a guy with a
Some of
shotgun.
this.
And you see, the helicopter is still just hovering right over your head. But we mow these guys down and we can continue onwards. And a bit further in we're gonna get some grenade launchers. And it takes quite a few grenades to take down the chopper. But I'm gonna show you a strategy that's quite effective. Or it's not so much a strategy as just throwing caution to the wind and blowing everything you can out of it. And I'm standing here like an idiot because I know some enemies are gonna spawn in, so I was hoping that it was a timed spawn, so I could just throw in a grenade and spawn kill them. But didn't work as well as I had hoped, but this works as well. So always be careful when you progress. Don't rush it, because don't let him stress you. That's the easiest way I can say it. because the music is it's doing its job, and who wouldn't feel stressed out by having a giant chopper shooting at you? I feel like I'm starting to sound like a broken record, so I'm not gonna mention it again. Instead, I'm gonna move on. And that was a bit of a risky move to make. Once again, never progress too far. Check so that all enemies are dead before you go in. And the fight coming up right now in this small room. This can be surprisingly hard. It's a very short fight. And the first thing you want to do is immediately run over to this desk and duck down and use your blind fire. There are 3 enemies in the first wave, and there are 3 enemies in the second wave. 2 are gonna come in here from the stairs. I'm waiting for them to spawn in so I can spawn kill them with a grenade. And 1 guy is gonna come from your right. And as soon as those missiles hit, they fall down. So I throw in my grenade, take them out, and now there's just 1 guy left. And be careful in this room, because all the furniture flying around can kill you. I think I died once or twice just by getting hit with a desk, which in my opinion felt really fucking cheap. Not gonna lie, I was quite pissed.
This way, come on.
Because the checkpoint, of course, there was 1 enemy left, so I had to redo the fight.
Guess we caught this
As
hotel
one
in the down
does.
season, huh?
But this game is quite generous when it comes to checkpoints. Actually, or usually, in a lot of the fights there are at least almost always at least 1 checkpoint in every fight, and sometimes there are 2, maybe even 3, and that is something they changed later on in the series. I think they were quite scarce in Uncharted 4, and they are very inconsistent in The Lost Legacy, I must say. But now we are coming close to the chopper fight.
Look out!
We're just gonna take down a few more enemies, and we are gonna get our hands on a grenade launcher. And that is what we're gonna use to kill it. And I think it takes, could be 6 or 7 grenades to take down the chopper. So your aiming is gonna have to be not super
Rich,
precise,
Sweet.
Yeah, tell me about
but
it. The
you
resistance
can't
fight
just
built them to get across the roof.
spray and pray either. And the bit about this fight that can be a little bit tricky is the fact that the chopper doesn't stay still. And I think in The Lost Legacy there is a helicopter fight in that game as well, as you may have experienced yourself if you play the game, or else you you will get to see it in my walkthrough. I'm busy editing it right now as I'm speaking, this September 6th 2017. I'm busy editing it. I'm gonna upload it as fast as possible. I've had some problems recording it that I'm not gonna get too deep into, but it is fully recorded. I've been editing as much as I can, all the time I can put into it, so I'm gonna have it up as fast as possible, and then I'm gonna start making preparations for Dishonored Death of the Outsider, which will be,
Nate, look out!
I think it's coming out next week or something,
Doesn't give up. Get down.
or at least very soon. But here is the chopper fight. I have 12 grenades, and what you want to do here is wait for him to stand still, because he does move around a little bit. I think he moves almost every time you hit him, and you see the grenades don't fly very fast, but something I'm doing right here that is quite unnecessary is I'm trying to aim before I fire. You can be quite successful in just blind firing him, and after you put a few shots into him, some enemies are gonna spawn. They always spawn. Because why would they let you fight the boss on your own without someone interrupting your party? So I'm doing a horrible job at using my whiz. I just used up all my bullets and not... Did I even hit that first guy? I don't think I did. So I'm gonna use the para 45, 62, para random number, and just wait for them to come to me. They will try and climb over that little ledge, and when they start mantling on it, just start blind firing and they will go down in no time at all. And as you can see, even if you hit the rotors, the helicopter will still take damage. So it's quite good sit down here, because he will hover over your head, so you can more or less just aim up and it will hit either the body of the chopper or the rotors. And down he went. Did someone count the grenades? I'm not quite sure how many it took. I think it's around 8 or 9. Something like that. But grenades aren't in short supply when you get to that fight, so... And if you fail, the checkpoint is just behind that little desk thingy that you saw me hiding behind at the start of the fight. So you're not losing any progress. As I said, they are very generous when it comes to checkpoints around here. And I remember recording this part. If you see some choppy transitions right now, if you follow me on Twitter, you may see that I bought a new USB cable. And my old cable just started malfunctioning. I realize now that it was probably defective when I bought it, because it kept on losing and regaining the signal. And this was a part where I had amazing problems with recording. It would just not work. So editing together this last part after that fight, I think it consisted of maybe 4 or 5 7 or 8 second videos while I was trying to get that cable to work, and every time I got a signal I tried progressing forward a little bit and then it wouldn't stop working again, and then I hadn't found a solution yet. But that was the end of chapter 6, and I want to thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again in my next video. So until next time, this is the Wolfman signing off.